Hey everybody, welcome back to Terminus. I am the death metal guy on a solo mission today. The black metal guy informed me he was seeking the fruits of human blood, which usually means hanging outside of an abandoned White Castle, but he doesn't know that, and I'm not going to blame him for it. On our last episode, we covered the inaugural album by a band called Thrash, a two-piece with their record Forbidden Rites. A fascinating kind of mixture of archaic thrash and crossover ideas that dip into kind of stenchcore territory, as well as traditional doom, as well as big indigestible slabs of ambience and noise. And we were really impressed by how forward-thinking it was, given how kind of raw and primitive the foundational elements are. So I am very lucky to have my buddy Zach in the studio for an interview. Zach, how are you doing today?
Great, it's awesome. Fucking been waiting for it.
Yeah, so we've known each other for, 5 years now?
Something like 5-6 years, something like that.
I gotcha. Yeah, and we've played shows together in various bands over the years, and this is a two-piece with you and our other buddy Brandon, right?
Yeah, who's now in the Air Force.
Okay, yeah. So you're doing it remotely over the internet.
Yeah.
And what's the division of labor for the project? Is he doing all the instrumental stuff, and you're handling the noise and the ambient vocals and stuff?
Yeah, more or less how it works is when we started writing the record, it was kind of just talked like concepts, sort of like what we wanted to do. And it ended up being like a punky thing, and then obviously it didn't fucking stay that.
Yeah.
But that's what the initial thing was, so he started sending me tracks over, and they started to get a little bit more thrashy. We kind of did away with the punk stuff, and so he does the instruments, he sends them to me, and I'll, go back and forth with him, let's add this, do this. But most of the time when he sends me a track, I'm like, we don't have to touch it. Let's record vocals right now.
Just go for it, yeah. Well, I mean, how long did this record take to piece together in terms of writing and recording?
We probably spent about a month and a half, 2 months.
Okay, yeah. Just get it out there.
Yeah, we were just pushing for it. I mean, and this is one of those things where every time we had free time, we were writing or doing something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't deny the results. It is, like I've been telling you, it's a weird fucking album, man. It's, so, for a little background, obviously all the listeners know me. My big things are primarily death, especially brutal death, grind, black metal, some really extreme doom. And I've never been much of a thrash guy, but the sort of thrash on this record seems to be reaching, like, before most of the other thrash bands we know. Because most modern kind of retro thrash bands sound like Slayer's Reign in Blood, or maybe Bonded by Blood by Exodus, that sort of thing. But you guys seem to be reaching before that, like a lot of kind of Kill 'Em All era Metallica, Show No Mercy by Slayer, kind of these early ones where they're still kind of like heavy metal records too.
Yeah, what you're talking about is almost like where punk started to evolve to get heavier into thrash. We were almost there with the thrash, but the punk element kind of still like took over halfway. And I think that's where that midpoint sound came from.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's cool about it, because like we were talking a little bit earlier, it's all about making the album what it is, what it should be. Unearthing the...
versus trying to subject it to, it's going to be this genre.
Yeah. Stop punching my table.
I like it.
You're clipping the mic. Okay, so in terms of influences for the old stuff, my co-host had some really interesting stuff to say, relating it to a lot of stuff from the late 80s in the UK, kind of proto-grind stenchcore stuff like Deviated Instinct, and... that was the big one he picked up, but apparently you haven't heard them, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. So I was interested in, like, whether you guys arrived at that same place, but we're also talking about, like, the earliest stuff by Bolt Thrower is kind of in that scene, or a lot of it's kind of derived from Amoebics, if you're familiar with them, or...
Drawing blanks. I know Bolt Thrower, like, everybody knows Bolt Thrower.
Yeah. Well, no, that's interesting, because you guys have kind of arrived at this sort of forgotten primordial sound where it's kind of punk and early crust and early metal all kind of mixing together. So in terms of the way these songs are structured, I'm guessing you were kind of collaborating with Brandon on that. There's a real big emphasis not just on these kind of driving thrash rhythms, but the intrusion of like the ambient and noise stuff seems really important. I know you've got like a few kind of interlude tracks on it, as well as a lot of weird kind of sampling and noise taking place in the songs themselves. So was that always an idea to pile that sort of thing on, or?
Any of our music that we've like put out prior to this, it's been like mainly like built around samples because we like making funny shit. So this one we were taking a more like serious approach. Let's write a good fucking record. Let's do something something different. And we just added the samples that were a little bit more on the fucking like dark side, or fucking kind of float a little bit more. They weren't as destructive. It's not a Step Brothers bit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that gets into something interesting because I was surprised because, I mean, you're a friend of mine, so invariably you're very dumb.
Thank you.
Your lyrics, the lyrics on this record are actually excellent. They're pretty audible, and it seems to all be kind of revolving around sort of the descent of men back to barbarism and stuff like that. I mean, that seems to be a thematic like thing across the record, like the failure of modern society. Is that kind of the general idea?
That's what it is, because I feel like we all hate people. I mean, we're all the people that we hate, but we all hate people. Mm-hmm. But I really like the stories and all like the history of like the Inquisitors and all that kind of like fucking primal shit where like nobody quite knew what the fuck to do with religion yet, so everybody wanted to fucking kill everybody that didn't fucking like what they liked and all that great shit. So that's where the fucking the themes come from, is like that old like Dungeons and Dragons witchcraft kind of thing thrown in there with fucking like torture and the idea of that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, what is on the album cover actually? Is that like a woodcut or something like that?
It's an image from an old book of shadows that my grandfather had.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's some sort of like pagan, like witchcraft ritual thing.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like a ritual. It was like a remembrance of the dead ritual or something like that. I can't remember what specifically it was.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, so that all kind of ties in. But what's interesting though is it's the structure of this music is really fascinating to me, because the kind of dissonance between this sort of traditional thrash and like the really extreme sampling and the kind of the noisiest parts of the record, they're really like from completely opposite sides of the musical spectrum, in terms of like extreme or heavy music. And I know you're saying that's been a consistent thing, is the sampling for your other projects, but here you get a sense that they're also kind of driving the flow of the record. Like the track listing itself, clearly there's something going on. It feels like there's a big arc to the whole record.
That's one thing that we sat with for. That's what it probably took an extra week just to figure out how we were going to track list the freaking thing. Because I mean, we wrote the songs in a weird pattern. Mm-hmm. The first song was "Seek the Seeker" actually, and I recorded like clean punk vocals over it, and it was the same one. And actually, that's a Robert Frost poem, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's The Escapist.
Yeah.
But I did like a clean punk thing, and I sent it back to him. And he was like, "Man, can you try like pushing a little bit? Like, let's do something different." And I was like, "All right." And at this time, I was still like discovering my fucking like metal sound, like the not. I don't want to say metal like that, but like.
Yeah, your
my harsher sound.
Yeah.
So I sent him back "Seek the Seeker" as it was, and we never touched that track from the day that I recorded it.
I gotcha.
So from there, that's when we kind of took off. We were like, okay, well, this can be put just based off this song. We can go in a lot of different fucking directions.
So that was kind of the seed, and then the rest of the album was built around that.
Yeah, it all kind of just like building blocked off that. Because if it wasn't for that song being how it was, we probably would have been a whole different fucking sound.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. And you said you're just kind of finding your vocals, because you're mostly a guitarist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of finding your style, which is interesting because there's like kind of a big range of vocal styles that you use on this. and you pretty much land all of them, which impressed me. But a lot of what you're floating around for a lot of it is this kind of like black thrash thing, kind of. I don't know. Who are you going for? Kind of like early Sodom? Or?
I like the I really like Toxic Holocaust, and there was a band that I didn't listen to too much, but Brandon showed me the vocalist of this band. I want to say it was like Morbid Saint or something like that.
Oh, Morbid Saint, yeah.
And then just like the thrash elements with that black metal vocal, I love that clash of fucking sound.
Yeah, definitely. But when you usually hear that, it's usually with stuff that's thrashier. This is like mostly mid-paced in a way, a lot of the riffing. I mean, there's places where you kind of rip it out and it kind of sounds like Sarcophago, but for the most part, it's like, we described on the show as like seek and destroy minus 15 BPM. It's like it's like a little too slow to mosh to, but it's too fast to be like doomy. So it's a really interesting kind of midpoint. I mean, do you know what Brandon was kind of listening to for writing this stuff?
I know Brandon's like heavily influenced by like all the old thrash guys as far as like Testament, all that kind of shit. I don't really know what he was listening to in the meantime, but Brandon also has like 12 projects he was working on, a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah, he's got a DSBM one that I like a lot.
Underworld or Nightborn?
I think Nightborn. It's been a while since I listened to it, but he definitely just kept stepping up. I will say he's really fucking jumped up as a guitarist from the last things I heard from him. It's like he's pulling off some pretty fast palm mute stuff on this that I can't fucking do.
Well, when we were kids starting out, Brandon was like the newcomer to guitar. He just kind of like bought a guitar at Guitar Center for like $50 and was like, oh, I can play like a G chord.
Yeah.
And he went from that, like not being able to keep up with us at all, to like putting out more music than any of us have. Like he just really wanted it.
Total metalhead guitar autism.
Yeah,
It's kind of classic.
Yeah, this is just all his focus. But yeah, he's definitely evolved a lot since that first Underworld record. It's crazy to listen to.
Oh yeah, definitely. And well, I mean, what about for you? So let's kind of, especially because one of the things I want to get into is you're 21 and what, Brandon's 22 now?
No, he's 21 too.
Oh, he's also 21. So as we were saying on the show, you guys are, you can kind of see metal going in like kind of 10-year generations. So you are from the generation younger than us, which means that you've got a really different perspective, especially on a lot of this old music, because you were further away from it than we are, in a way. So what was kind of your metal youth getting into the music? What did you start with?
Oof. My mom was like a really cringy like 90s kid, so she liked Limp Bizkit and all that shit. I never got into Limp Bizkit, but Korn was one of my like first bands that I was like, okay, I really like this fucking heavier fucking style. I don't know, you couldn't call Korn heavy now. It's just a fucking it's almost like hip hop.
Yeah, first few albums were still great.
Yeah, I still love Korn.
Yeah.
Don't think I'm talking shit about Korn. I still love Korn. But that's kind of where it got started, and I never got into metal. Like, Brandon was raised around a dad who was into, like, Obituary, all this stuff, grew up in Tampa. Mm-hmm. So they already kind of knew about it. I was like a Green Day, fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers kid.
Gotcha.
Like, that's what I did. I was in a band with some guys, and we played some really shitty, like, pop punk. And then I was in high school, met Brandon, he's like, hey, you ever listen to fucking black metal? You want to play bass? I was like, no, I've never heard. What the fuck is that? Like, and he sent me Dark Throne, the album with In the Shadow of the Horns.
Oh yeah, Blazing the Northern Sky.
Yeah, that was like my first touch into black metal, and I was like, you know how. Imagine a kid that's into that kind of music listening to black metal. It takes a minute it's an acquired taste.
No, I get that.
But once I got into it, I was like, holy fuck! Now I get it.
Yeah,
I understand it. I learned how to fucking play that song. Went with them, and fucking. That's history.
That was one of the first riffs that I learned as a kid. Was the In the Shadow of the Horns riff.
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah. God, that feels like that's a new like AC/DC Back in Black riff. It's like this is your first riff as a black metal kid. You learn. I learned In the Shadow of the Horns, and I learned a couple things off Transylvanian Hunger. So. Just when I was getting started. Yeah,
I think I learned In the Shadows of the Horns, and then we all played Freezing Moon because we thought it was the hardest song in the world.
God, that's not even the hardest song off that album.
No.
Fucking Curse in Eternity or something is actually like difficult.
No, we no, not like hard to play. We just thought it was like fucking we thought we were like little badasses playing fucking Freezing Moon in Cole's dad's house.
God, it's so weird because that's not far off from like how it worked for us. Like literally the same trajectory of like new metal growing up, Korn, Slipknot, Mudvayne, everything, and then I got kind of directly into death and black metal from there. I didn't really grow up listening to any of the old thrash or like trad metal, any of that stuff. So that's something I had to kind of come back to after the fact as I got older. So did you have like kind of the thrash heavy phase, or did you go right into extreme stuff?
Yeah, that's kind of the same process that happened to me. It kind of just got sprung on me. So I was like, I went straight into like, from listening to Korn and like Marilyn Manson and stuff like that as like my heavy music, to listening to Dark Throne, Gorgoroth, that kind of shit overnight. So I had to track back and listen to all the old stuff that Corey and Brandon grew up with. Like they were showing me like Candlemass is one of the favorite bands that I've ever come across, and they were the ones that was like, hey, you ever heard this? I was like, fuck no, I never heard this. Like, they showed me. I never listened to like fucking Slayer at all. Yeah. Which is a weird thing, I guess. But I'd never fucking heard Slayer until I'd met them.
Oh, I get it. No, well, that's what's interesting is the track that you take, especially, because that's something I've noticed where, basically, I feel like around my age is the cutoff. People around 30 and younger usually came up through nu metal, and a lot of them just kind of skipped over a lot of the traditional stuff. And I was kind of expecting that to be the case for you, but even more extreme, just because the reality is if you're getting into it through nu metal sounds more like death metal than it does Iron Maiden. Yeah, it's about heaviness and abrasion and extremity. So one thing I'm definitely curious about, though, in terms of influences, and kind of leading to how you consider this, is a lot of trad doom on this record. I was hearing a lot of Sabbath and a lot of St. Vitus. I guess you were saying Candlemass would be a big one?
Yeah, Candlemass is a big influence of both of us. Like, the clean vocals that I did, I wanted to be Candlemass all the way, but I could not do operatic vocals at all, so I was like, okay, we're just going to do it. Fuck it.
You can't hit the falsettos? No? So, Candlemass, and then I'm guessing... like
Sabbath, of course. I mean, we've all listened to Sabbath.
Cathedral.
There's also some like weird smaller bands that I fucking came into like on my own, like Doomsword.
Oh yeah, Doomsword. Wow, that's a fucking deep cut, man. Doomsword's awesome.
I fucking I was like 17 when I found Doomsword, and I was still in high school, and I thought I was like this. I would listen to that shit like 3 or 4 times a day, like the whole fucking record.
Those CDs are like, I think they're like almost impossible to find these days. They've been out of print for so long. I mean, they only did 2 or 3 albums, right?
Yeah, they didn't go for very long, and it kills me that a band that fucking good is like.
Yeah, it's like Doom Manowar. It's
fucking
awesome.
It's fucking sweet.
Yeah, if you want a version of that's a little bit more like deathy, go for Rune Magic.
Rune Magic?
Yeah, you'd be really into that kind of like fantasy themed death doom from Sweden, but like really epic and vast. So
fuck yeah.
Yeah, you dig it. So that bridges into something I wanted to talk about, which is I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, that nowadays there is a sort of cutoff where you kind of pick your year in the 80s and everything before it is sort of the same thing. The way you think of it, it's just old metal. And it's been interesting because I see a lot of kids coming up like you who think of Iron Maiden and Sabbath and early Slayer all in the same song makes sense, because it's all coming from a kind of historical era.
Yeah, it all kind of like falls into a category like when we want to fucking like listen to old school shit. For instance, when we go hang out with his dad, we put everything old school in the same category as far along the lines of fucking, just like you said, Iron Maiden, Sabbath. We listen to fucking Overkill, all that kind of shit, like all in the same fucking playlist kind of thing.
God, you listen to Overkill? I'm sorry.
I love the Mickey Mouse vocals. It's a thing for me.
I can't stand that fucking band. I mean, I I'm not a big thrash guy, but Overkill is a special case for me, where it's just like, oh Jesus, it's like listening to Flotsam and Jetsam or something like that.
I think that was my second metal show after I seen you guys at the Mug. I went with Corey and all of them up there to see Overkill, and I was like, okay, it's fucking cool.
Oh, that one. I think I was at that show too, but I think wasn't it Symphony X and Overkill?
No, the one that I went to, it was like Withering Earth and that fucking that one shitty local band that no one likes to fucking mention.
I gotcha. No, so there is kind of a category where all this stuff belongs together. It's just really interesting because, I mean, if I'm in a mood for Iron Maiden, I would not throw Sabbath in the same playlist, but what that indicates is you're hearing something different in it. The connective tissue that you perceive is going to be different from how I see it, just because we came up at different times and everything.
I understand what you're saying. Like it wasn't as old yet. You know what I'm saying? There were still heavy differences of it. So like when we came up, there was so much other shit.
Yeah.
That it kind of compartmentalizes.
Yeah. So I mean, when you were in high school or something, how does a kid start learning about metal these days? Because back in my day, it was back in my day, who the fuck am I? All right. It was just used record stores or early file sharing, like Kazaa and like LimeWire and shit like that. So what was it? Is everything just YouTube now?
Yeah, it seems like you guys had to try a little bit harder. Like everything's on YouTube, fucking Pandora, Spotify. If I wanted to find new bands, I can click on a band I like on Spotify and it'll play other shit that's similar.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we all discovered shit, was playing through random stuff, or like, you know, even the encyclopedia.
Metal Archives.
Just looking through weird shit when we were into that phase.
Oh, definitely. Well, it's good to see that being an internet metal autist is still alive.
Yeah.
Well, what's also kind of different, though, is, I don't know, it's like kind of the way the metal scene works has shifted a lot. Like, back in the day, it was all about, metal message boards, and now it's kind of, I guess that kind of only lives on in, like, Facebook groups these days and shit like that.
And even then,
it's terrible for conversation.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's like, at once it's easier to get access to any of this music than ever before, but it seems like almost the social parts have become harder, because everyone's kind of, like, sitting in their own little tiny Facebook metal meme group or whatever. They're not talking to people with different interests, Yeah,
the only time that happens anymore is when we're like at shows, and even then it's hardly.
Yeah. Well,
if I didn't fucking already meet the guys that I knew fucking coming up, I probably would have never fucking got into anything. I probably would have just kept playing acoustic guitar and never did anything.
Yeah, well, now it's in the end of the world year 2020. It's harder than ever before. So it's like I've been seeing all these guys trying to do, this metal band is doing a stream show, and I'm like,
yeah, and they'll still charge like $40 for like it's a show ticket. Like, what the fuck?
I do not understand that at all. But I did see something fairly cool with some black metal band, I forget, but they decided to do their stream show like in full like mask and costume in the woods. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, if you present it like it's a show kind of thing, like it's like you're almost like seeing a video being made.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like what if we treat it more like a movie than just a live stream of guys playing?
Yeah, because the cinematic in cinema is cool, but cinematic on stage is dorky.
Yeah, that's very true. So I think maybe that's the move. I mean, I'm sure that like a band like Behemoth could probably create something outstanding.
Oh yeah,
in that style. Even though I'm not a huge fan of theirs, their grasp of aesthetics and kind of how to do things is can't deny that. So let's dig into this album a little bit more. Get a little bit more specific. So obviously, the big one I want to talk about is Eyes of Solitude. We were drunkenly singing the hook together last night. I was playing a show last night, and Zach was actually in town to see us, so we decided, hey, let's do an interview the next day. But Eyes of Solitude, my favorite song on the record, and that's fucking killer. So we'll kind of go backwards through the album. What's the deal with that one? I mean, because that's the most openly just like traditional Doom. I said it sounded a lot like Crowbar, personally.
I that one, it was kind of hard for me to write lines, so I was like, let me find a couple of good lines and almost have it like a chant. Mm-hmm. Like, instead of doing like a chorus, verse, let me find like 2 chants and roll with it. I kind of just came in, had a shitty day. Brandon just sent me this depressive-ass track. Started listening to it. I came up with the first one, This Mortal Body's Driving Me Insane. It's keeping me restrained.
Okay.
So it's just essentially like, fuck, I hate being alive. Mm-hmm. You know, I could not have to deal with this shit ever if I just fucking like slit my wrist right now and just gave it 15 minutes, like kind of like the suicidal kind of shit.
I gotcha.
And then it kicks over into the eyes, which strains from an old like indie song that I wrote a while ago about. Cause when I was like 14, I had this old lady next door fuck me, and it's kind of like fucked me up to where I can't fucking like function in a relationship with girls my own age. Like I can date a chick my own age for like 2 days, and then I'm like, you're fucking annoying. But it's like fuck me up. But like the one thing that really like fucking I can't ever get out of my fucking brain about that woman is her fucking eyes. She had like weird gray green eyes, and it's fucking like haunted me since fucking then, really. Shit, man. Because it became like a regular thing, you know what I'm saying? Like I was a kid, didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, it's vagina. But you know, this woman was like actually really fucked up and like.
Well, if she's fucking a 14-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, it's harshly fucked up. But anyways, that's more or less what that was about, was her fucking eyes. And you can definitely hear, like, the fucking timidness that I have, like, when I'm saying that. Like, I put a lot of emotion into that fucking chorus line in its own, if you would call it that.
No, I mean, we could hear it. I mean, we were really impressed by that performance, because, like I was saying, it's like, it's a little timid up front, a little unsure, and then you're like, fuck, I actually can sing clean, and it sounds sick.
Yeah, I was telling you last night, I didn't even want to send that one to Brandon after I recorded it. I was like, yeah, I don't like how I did this. And I was like, you know what? Fucking here. Oh. Brandon was like, dude, what the fuck?
Singing clean is way scarier than doing harsh vocals.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're a vocalist that judges other vocalists as you listen to them. You're like, did you do what?
Well, it's just, I've always thought it's a lot more vulnerable. It's like, if I fuck up, I'm going to fuck up really bad. Yeah, I can kind of cover it up when I'm doing, you know, harsh vocals. Yeah, but it's like, if you're just bad on clean, you're just fucking bad, you know?
Yeah, it's very, very, very noticeable. Like, I couldn't imagine trying to do that on stage. I'd probably, like, have a fucking mental breakdown.
Oh, God. It's bad enough when I have to play guitar, I can't imagine. So, yeah, no, that was a favorite of both of ours. And then a couple other tracks we talked about on the podcast were Resurrection 5, which my buddy really liked. And so first off, what is that sample at the beginning of that? It's sort of this tribal thing?
No. That is that's the one that starts with the because that was the single that we put out first. That's actually a hurdy-gurdy. Oh, you remember the old crank thing? Brandon's wife bought him one of those. And he actually recorded hurdy-gurdy for the beginning and the end of that song.
Are you fucking for real?
I wish I was kidding, but it's for real. It's fucking awesome.
His wife bought him a hurdy-gurdy. Okay, already a very strange relationship there. But he really just recorded that?
Yeah. With a mic right to the hurdy-gurdy. Yeah. Even the riff kind of follows the hurdy-gurdy fucking...
Well, yeah, and at the... I think at the very end, like the last riff, he does some of the hurdy-gurdy melody on the guitar. So, yeah, no, he was convinced that it was from, like, Master Musicians of Jojuka or something like that. I was convinced that it was some bizarre kind of tribal sample, maybe from a documentary or something, because it sounds awful and awesome. So
yeah, that's definitely one of them organic samples. It's one of the few we have on here that we just kind of just threw together.
Oh, you just did yourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, it's awesome, man. And I think we were both talking about how we want to see even more of that in future music, because kind of adding stuff in this kind of like old school. I mean, that's almost kind of like an old school tape loop thing. That's sort of like an early industrial idea of just, you know, recording these little loops and sampling them in and stuff like that. So I think that's a great idea, and it's so weird when it's a bunch of old school thrash it's happening to.
Yeah, I'm fucking... the way we did it with this record definitely flows a lot better than the ones that were more comedy based with all the samples.
Yeah.
But that's where we got to fucking base our sample shit off of, because I don't think we would have done it if it wasn't for, I hate to say it, Minstrel Moonshine coming out with their first samples where they were actually like a dude talking on Xbox 360 about sucking somebody's dick and sitting on a plunger, like weird shit.
Oh man, no, it's a lot of fun too though. So another one. Oh well, we want to also clarify the lyrics for Resurrection 5 because he really loved it. It's we're going to break down the walls between the gods and pitiful men. Power belongs to us all, tired and dead, shouting the call. Shouting the call, all right. Dance in ecstasy and see what we've done. Use something from the pain and be reborn.
It's gaze in ecstasy and see what we've done. You have felt no pain, dead but reborn.
Oh, okay. There we go. That clarifies it a little bit. No, but that was like super. That was super like old bolt thrower. That section there, like, I mean, the way bolt thrower tracks kind of break down is really similar to a lot of the stuff you're doing, where it's just go into just like straight up kind of mid-paced down pick chug riff, you know? It's fucking awesome. So Wandering in Purgatory, because that is, I really didn't like that the first time I heard that, but then I heard the rest of the album and I came back to it. Okay, this makes a little more sense. So this is just Sabbath, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fucking Sabbath influence in this one.
Yeah, we were wondering if it was straight Sabbath or if it was something more modern, like Electric Wizard or something like that.
I gotta say, he's really into Acid Witch, too.
Okay, I gotcha.
But Electric Wizard, I'm not too sure of.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you kind of pull it off because it wraps back around into the thrash stuff, which...
Yeah, it's a weird fucking... That's one of our dirtiest mix of songs. It's like... It's because I repeat the verse instead of the chorus, which is a weird thing. The structure is really fucked.
Well, I mean, what was your favorite song on the album? What do you think?
My favorite song on the album would probably be "Wandering in Purgatory."
Wandering in Purgatory?
Just because it's all over the fucking place.
Yeah. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to run that for the listeners all the way through. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, talk a little bit more.
Just
All right, so once again, that was Wandering in Purgatory, and let's pull back a little bit. Like, what are you listening to now? Well, I guess more importantly, where do you want to take this band in the future?
So far, we've done like different styles each time. So I kind of just want to. This one was kind of like a free fall. Mm-hmm. You know, we kind of just let it happen. That's what the approach I want to keep with this band. You
want to keep it very organic like that.
Yeah, let's write something and we'll see what I can do with it, and we'll fucking talk back and forth, figure something out, and then we find a good style with it, we'll roll with it.
I gotcha. Well, that's very easy. That's like we were just talking during the break. That's incredibly hard for me to do. Yeah, I think about this stuff very kind of rigidly and mechanically. You got this. There's not a lot of room for just kind of like sudden inspiration, I guess, which is, you know, like a bad thing and a good thing at the same time, you know.
Well, I mean, it's a bad thing it's a bad thing and a good thing on the other end of the spectrum too, because fucking having good structure helps a hell of a lot with the songwriting process, and especially when you start incorporating like a full band and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. When you're doing it by your two guys, it's easy to do it on spot.
Yeah, you don't have to negotiate between five people or anything like that.
When it's with the full band, like the songwriting process is extremely important, to where if you have a guy trying to start a band and he's like, oh, I just got an idea for this riff, it's like, you didn't have anything ready?
There's nothing worse than the guys who, oh yeah, I'm doing a band, and it's just them basically jamming forever. It's just, I've been in that situation a couple times, and I exited very quickly from those. I'm like, yeah, this is not going to happen, dude.
Well, when you played that house show with Ellis, with me and Cole, our other guitar player, who was playing drums, and we did like a pop-up set we called Hermit. It was like weird
Black Doom kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was just nothing. It was just an improv set to cover for a band, and it was horrible.
Oh, I thought there was actual music there.
No, we were just like jamming.
I thought it was just very avant-garde. Ooh, this is bad, but in a very interesting way. Oh, man. So, yeah, so I know you want to keep it that organic process, but actually, well, first, I mean, how's the response to this been? I mean, as much as you can get being a tiny band that no one knows.
Yeah. We've had mostly good response, but you know, like, nobody is going to tell you that your record is horrible.
Oh, I will.
Like, oh, yeah, I know you will. That's what I love about it. That's why you were the first one I was like, you don't have social media anymore. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Fucking, yeah, we've got good reception from everybody. It's very segregated that I found so far. Like, somebody's like, oh, I like these songs, but these ones were like, what the fuck?
Oh, okay. So
I haven't had anybody that was like, you know, I got the record.
Okay, so it's people kind of falling on either they're into the thrashy stuff or the more doom stuff.
Yeah.
I gotcha. No, it took me a while to kind of figure out the synthesis of it, but, you know, after I listened a couple times, it was like it made sense. You know, there's a real pacing and stuff, and like we were saying, for you guys, why wouldn't trad doom be part of thrash? You know, because it's all from the olden days, when people still rode horses and the world was in black and white.
We're making old man music.
Definitely old man music. So apart from trash, I mean, what kind of stuff are you mostly doing today? I know you've been on kind of a doom kick, right?
Yeah, I've been doing a doom thing with Brandon's brother. It's like just sci-fi themed doom, because I like the sci-fi thing, but I don't like how everything that's sci-fi has to be deathcore. Yeah. But I've been into that, and I'm also doing like a crossover grindy band with Arturo, who you met last night, called Collapser. It's just like dirty South American metal with my fucking all over the place vocals on it.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty promising. We're into kind of lunatic South American stuff, so.
Oh, he's definitely, that's how he writes.
Oh, man.
It's fucking crazy.
Like, I mean, Sarcophago is one of my favorite bands of all time. Holocausto, the old Cogumelo record stuff out of Brazil and Colombia. All of that's fucking outstanding. And now the Colombians have one of the best brutal death scenes on the planet right now, so they're just killing it in every direction. But in terms of, well, what are you listening to now?
I've been taking a break from like the more extreme stuff. Like, I've been getting into like Christian death, Sisters of Mercy. Like
Old goth rock, yeah.
It's a weird. It's like I get fucked with all the time because I like it and I think it's hilarious. But I've got a weird soft spot for The Cure, man. I love The Cure.
Who makes fun of people for liking The Cure? Everyone likes The Cure now.
Oh, well, it's just something we both... Because Corey likes ABBA, so we back and forth each other.
ABBA's good, too.
Yeah, I can't deny ABBA.
Well, no, the big thing is everyone coming back to liking the Smiths, you know?
I still haven't gotten to the Smiths that much.
It's the riffs, man. Like, those are incredibly difficult riffs, despite how simple they sound. Those little jangly melodies and shit. I'm really into it.
There's another band, not another band, he's had several bands, but I'm really into David Bowie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've been like a David Bowie fan ever since I was a kid, because like the Labyrinth was like my VCR tape, like that's fucking, but yeah, after I like started listening into like David Bowie's actual music, he's got some weird fucking stuff out.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, he reinvented himself every album.
Yeah, it's fucking
in the same
awesome.
way that Marilyn Manson did, because he basically just took Bowie's whole thing,
yeah,
and did his own riff on it. Lately, for me, it's been really old, kind of early rock. Like I've been listening to the Beach Boys a ton lately.
Okay.
Yeah, just because just as a musician, the kind of harmonic language in those songs is 100 years ahead of everyone. We still haven't caught up to the Beach Boys and how rich those melodies are and how complex. And I've also been getting back into old singer-songwriter stuff, like a lot of Bob Dylan, that sort of thing.
Elvis?
Yeah, a little bit by way of because I've been listening to a lot more like Misfits and stuff like that lately.
Okay.
You know, and Misfits, that's all that's all Elvis and doo-wop sped up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is what makes it cool.
Yeah, I've always liked the Misfits, but I just kind of like recently discovered Elvis. Like I obviously everybody know who Elvis is, but I like started listening to some of his shit, and I was like, this was pretty intense for like the 50s.
Oh yeah, no, Elvis did a lot of good work, and that's always been something interesting. I think that's something we're starting to hear more of is a lot of guys picking up on. Guys get into like trad doom or early heavy metal, but then they're like, okay, so where does this come from? Then go back to listening to like older blues stuff and seeing where it's all derived from. I mean, a lot of people can make a knockoff stoner doom band that sounds like Sleep and call it a day, but it's different from actually knowing how those riffs are written.
Yeah, the roots of that. I hate to say Sabbath because I know there's tons of bands out there that are probably have the same similar fucking drive.
Yeah, there were a few.
It's like it almost has that old school, like old timey with the bass riffs, but it's just heavier.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything reminds me of old like blues and like bluegrass kind of mixed. Like it's slow and it's got like a kind of a hick feel to it.
A hick feel.
but it's just heavier and fucking some parts are faster, some parts are drug out to be a little slower and fucking heavier. They're fucking the tone is what I feel like makes it. Like, can you imagine what if Sabbath had like fucking all cleans?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be like a bluegrass band.
Yeah, it would be. Or all the way reaching back to like early Mississippi Delta blues. You know, really primitive early stuff, guys with two strings on their guitar kind of shit, you know. I love all that. But there's a lot of guys who are coming back, especially a lot of the newer guys who are punk influenced, and it's like, yeah, they like listening to the Misfits, they like listening to the Ramones, but what are the predecessors to these? So how do we know how to really build this shit from the ground up?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to fuck it, that's another thing that's fucked up, because it's like if you want to be like, fucking, for instance, the Misfits, you gotta go back and listen to Elvis. If you want to be like Death, you gotta go back and listen to fucking what the fuck ever Chuck Schuldiner was fucking jamming to when he was fucking jerking his dick.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that's one of the reasons nobody's been able to recreate Morbid Angel, because Trey was listening to a shit ton of Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. So his death metal guitar style is completely different. He's got a whole different frame of reference, and that's why his riffs are so unique and so kind of complex, because it's got more to do with Hendrix than it does
any kind of death metal shit, or like trying to fucking be extreme.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess that's another thing. So, coming up in high school, being a younger guy, what are guys your age trying to do right now? I mean, are you seeing a lot of people doing kind of retro throwback stuff, or
Like, you mean music-wise in general?
Yeah.
The guys that I came up with, they're majorly, like, into, like, the hip-hop and shit like that. Like, finding somebody that was into anything... Like, Brandon was the only kid in our school that listened to fucking extreme metal as it is. Mm-hmm. And I was a weird kid for listening to fucking Korn. So fucking, yeah, we were like, it's just one of those things where it's not a prominent thing anymore.
It's so weird because I feel like even when I was in high school, you could see things starting to shift. There were kids in Behemoth shirts and stuff like that. I was kind of interested. Well, you're also coming from a rural area.
Yeah.
Yeah, a more rural area. So it's a little bit different out there, but I feel like at this point, extreme metal is kind of a mainstream thing. I mean, I grew up in an era where people didn't know what death metal was. And nowadays it seems like everybody generally has the idea. So, I don't know. That's a generational thing. I mean, well, now it's... I mean, what are things on the ground like? Is it still just dominated by deathcore shit, or...?
Oh, yeah. Everybody that's into the metal as it metal is fucking... They're mostly into fucking deathcore.
Yeah.
Like you actually, a kid in that band that was there last night, that deathcore band, the bass player went to high school with us.
Oh yeah.
And they're all metalcore, deathcore, like not even good metalcore.
Well, it's so weird because it feels like deathcore's dead. Like there hasn't been a really great deathcore album in years.
No, but there's so many fucking people into it, and it's just like. Every time it's somebody that likes Whitechapel or like just the basic like beginner stuff.
And Whitechapel hasn't been good in 15 years or something.
And I still see fucking kids wearing fucking Chelsea Grin hoodies and shit.
My God, what year is it?
Yeah.
Well, you're from a more rural part of the state, so maybe you guys are 15 years behind. So it's like we're growing up.
That's what it is.
It's exactly the same time frame, something like that. But. Fucking Chelsea Grin, I haven't even thought of them in years. God, they're so old now.
Didn't they have like fucking 14 guitar players or something like that?
I don't remember. There was that really idiotic period of deathcore where everyone decided they needed 3 guitarists. Still one of the funniest fucking things I have ever seen. I remember seeing some of those shows where it's like, oh yeah, it's a 6-piece. We got 3 guitarists, a bassist, a drummer, and maybe 2 vocalists sometimes.
Yeah, it's like when you make $20 at the end of the night, good luck splitting that up, buddy.
Exactly. Although I do miss the days of 2 vocalist deathcore. That needs to come back, like Despised Icon style stuff. You gotta have your hardcore guy and your like inhaled guttural guy,
I don't know, man. I'd feel weird. Like, can you imagine like somebody trying to do like traditional anything with 2 vocalists?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe if somebody was playing guitar, like there was like a backup vocals like that, but 2 vocalists that are just like guys with microphones in their hands.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times, and sometimes it really works. I mean, definitely not all the time, but sometimes it does. But yeah, I think back in the day, Animosity, I think they had 2 vocalists for a while. Those guys were great, kind of formative deathcore. So yeah, metal is just kind of like off the table for a lot of kids in your situation, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And then for kids who are getting into it, I guess we touched on this a little bit before, where it's all about YouTube. I mean, what's kind of driving the culture? Well, I mean, let me focus in. What would you say right now is a really kind of important band in metal?
An important band.
Not even necessarily that you like, but they're currently putting stuff out and they're a big deal.
Oh, well, fucking... I say like Dying Fetus is one of the fucking more popular ones that fucking... They're actually pretty decent that everybody's still fucking talking about.
Yeah, it's so weird because they've been around for so long now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like almost 30 years, I believe, for Dying Fetus.
Then, fuck, I don't even know. I hardly listen to new shit anymore.
Oh yeah, well I'm just interested because it's like I don't listen to I'm listening to a lot of new stuff, but it's almost all small labels, independent.
That's what I like of the new shit. I like the smaller bands. Like there's a fucking black metal band somewhere in the middle of the fucking cornfield in like Wisconsin or something like that named Vrendensdal.
Oh yeah.
And he's fucking putting out like second wave shit like he was there or some shit like that.
We've been hearing a little bit of that lately. It's like people really going back to the second wave and trying to take what they know now and recreate it. Because, I mean, when me and my co-host got into black metal, that's all that the bands did. All the bands just tried to, like, badly recreate old Dark Throne or Mayhem occasionally or Emperor. And it was just, it all fucking sucked. And then you had stuff like Deathspell Omega that kind of kicked everyone out of that. And, we started opening up again. So, I mean, in terms of metal as a whole, I know you're not doing a lot of new stuff right now, but what do you see as kind of the most fertile ground for, like, real progression, real new ideas? Is there anything that's kind of catching your ear that's more contemporary?
Fuck, I wish I had an example, but I really haven't. I'm sure I could find some if I really fucking tried, but, like, every time for the last couple years that I've tried to find something like a new band that's coming out, like fucking they just put out a record or some shit like that, I haven't found anything that really caught me.
Oh, I gotcha.
And I've tried shit because Brandon will do it all the time. He'll be like, yo, you gotta listen to this record, you gotta listen to this record. And if it's like fucking any time in the last 5 years, it's like never good.
Well, do you think that you're just, like, in general, I mean, kind of regardless of whether you're hearing new stuff that you like, do you think your heart's just more in the old school in general?
Yeah, it's that's where I think my mentality's at with it. Like it's like I said, straight from Chili Peppers to fucking black metal, and then like just the classic old school shit that I got into. And then everything else that's new is like, what the fuck? These guys were like way better in the 80s.
Why take any of the modern clones when you still got the originals around?
Yeah, YouTube is a son of a bitch.
Well, in terms of digging up weird old school stuff, how are you usually doing that these days?
Oh, that's coming from just random fucking plays on music listening apps and like talking to Brandon about stuff. How I found Doomsword was out on a encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I found Doomsword and fucking that's how I kind of got into that. I listened to a couple other bands that I can't really even remember the fucking names of right now, but Doomsword was the one that fucking really like one of those fucking holy fucking shit, why are these guys not known by everybody kind of things.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably a good frame to end on. So what would be your favorite Doomsword song?
Soldiers of Fortune.
Soldiers of Fortune. Well, in that case, we'll go out on that note. This is Doomsword's Soldiers of Fortune. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you next time. Zach, thanks so much for coming on with me, and looking forward to hearing new stuff.
It was a pleasure, and I appreciate you listening to the album.
Alrighty. Have a good one.